Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and welcome to the show. Now, this week, we've been talking about love and lust and desire and obsession and figuring out a way to bring that to our tabletop RPG games. And in some slight ways, discovering, how would it fit into the games. And just as a caveat, I will say that we are not talking about uh, while some of these subjects might not be appropriate for your table, it's fine. We're not talking about the actual act of sexual congress, but all the things that are related to it and the possibility of using those concepts in and around your setting, without necessarily needing to devolve into uh, immature descriptions of particular acts. So um, today is World Building Wednesday, and one of the things we like to do on World Building Wednesday is take whatever subject or theme that we are talking about, and it could be something physical like, oh, I don't know, frozen wastelands or Medusas, or it could be something far more undefined or ephemeral, such as a particular type of emotion or purpose in life. And today I thought we would try to, and even I don't know where this is going to go, to create a world, a setting where the dominant force in it has to deal with love and lust and desire and obsession and jealousies and emotions and marriages and those kinds of concepts. Now, uh, our moderator and longtime participant, Dead Man, has suggested to us to probably pull from a very popular, a somewhat older story series known as the Chronicles of Amber. And uh, to not go into too much detail, it details the main characters are of a noble family. And the beginning of the series, you follow a character who has lost his memory and being reintroduced to the noble family. Now this family are possess great power and are able to walk between worlds and slide between the worlds of amber and chaos, and walk between shadows by following the pattern. There's far more to it, but I think the greatest part, and I think I'm going to guess what Dead Man's pulling from, is this greater noble family. And we know from historical docudramas and those things that are built in and around the machinations of noble families. The most famous of which is the Song of Ice and Fire. Not most famous, but a famous one. Basically, the Game of Thrones. Shakespeare has many of Shakespeare's plays, the most famous of which you can think of, such as like Hamlet or King Lear and such, deal with not just the action, but the intricacies of families and status, and how while nations rise and fall around different individuals, ultimately it might come down to an arranged marriage or someone who loves someone else. Even in the classic Hamlet, the two main characters have a desire for each other, but they're both members of families that are at war with each other, and they hate each other to the point of murder. And so, designing a world where people understand that there is power in relationships, there's power in forming in family bonds and in marriage, and that maybe the player characters themselves have this intricate web of relationships and alliances where they're their power rises and falls, and that to ally yourself with one side or the other, or to have someone that you wish to become in an official marriage to might upset the apple cart. I think could be pretty important. Now the buy-in, I think, in something like this would require a lot of buy-in to establish with the player characters and the DM that while from the outside we know pragmatically, for example, let's say a character a character from humble beginnings knows that they are not noble, and but they have a desire to be with someone who is from a noble family, and are having, say, an illicit relationship. Illicit in the sense that society, the upper crust, doesn't want their noble daughter or something like that having a relationship with someone from the gutter. And of course, pragmatically, we're thinking like, oh, that's wrong, and there are ways around this and such. But in the society where it's very important to understand that, like, with nobility comes not just money and influence, but there's an acceptance of power in it, that the population understands or believes that there's something good and right, that the nobles must be in a higher status in life. And I think as players and those of us in a modern context might want to rebel against something like that. But if you get players who want to embrace that kind of concept, I don't think you'd have too much of a problem with it, since we have so many real life things to pull from. Now, if we want to get a little bit more arcane with something like this, it's possible that there is power behind the confluence of different relationships, meaning that, for example, someone wants to, you know, the old grandmarn wants to give a potion to the to the princess, because she sees that the princess loves this, gutter rat or something, and wants to find a potion from an old hag so that she doesn't fall in love, or she falls out of love with this gutter rat. And that in itself could start this process where you have something very simple. Player character wants to be with noble wants to be with player character, but there's all these other people that want that separated. Some would say that in the Song of Ice and Fire, while not specifically dealt upon, that there was a situation with a prince and princess that shouldn't, from two noble houses that were at war with each other, and those two wanted to be with each other, but in their act of trying to be together, the noble houses twisted it into one of kidnapping and obsession and torture and that sort of thing. So it's also possible to have people twist things around, and putting some arcane power behind it, maybe breaking a marriage, or forging a marriage, or creating an alliance with another family might bring upon it specific power involved in it. You can go classically with bloodlines, like say if you really want to relate this to actual blood, this could be a great excuse for having sorceress classes in the world, because by both bloodlines getting together and having children and whatnot, it puts them in in a level of power. It may also be, you could tie lots of character options to this as well, meaning that maybe particular noble houses are known for specific types of skills and or abilities, and that, for example, there might be certain fighting styles that are associated with one family or another, and they don't give out those secrets unless you are allied in some way, shape, or form, either through marriage or, um, you know, going away from say sexual relationships. There could be like blood bonds, right, between allies, meaning like, you know, uh, a group of 5 soldiers have been to war together, and they decide to bond themselves in blood. The typical, like, I'm going to spit in my palm and you spit in your palm. We're going to shake hands, or we're going to take a knife. You know, kind of strange, but we're going to take a dirty knife and cut our palms and speak an oath while we grasp each other's forearms or something like that. Or we're all going to, you know, because of our fallen brother or sister, we're going to sit around the campfire and sip from a cup with just a drop of their blood in it or something, and make an oath to each other. And maybe these oaths themselves bring about power that bonds them all together. And then when they get back to, say, civilization, or they go back to their own corners of the world, there could be like an emotional, like, other people can sense that they've created this bond, or maybe there could even be something physical with it, right? I'm imagining clerics in this world, instead of the classic, like, I'm going to pick a cleric. I mean, I'm a cleric picking a domain and having one godling. Maybe there is a desire for the gods to have these intricate relationships with each other, and they expect their mortal kin to also establish particular relationships with each other as well. And some of the clerics might be bucking the system a little bit. And so to have access to, for example, a cleric of life only allows a cleric to obtain spells of healing, but then there might be a cleric of like, maybe they're okay. Let's see if I can explain this. Instead of one god of light and life, maybe there is a council of gods. And so one member of the council gives healing, and the other member of the council gives light and fire or something. But in order for that cleric to obtain the entire spectrum of their given abilities, they must bond themselves in one way, or one way, shape, or form. Now, this could get a little bit dark, I think, in a world where, for example, you're expected to have children, and the individuals involved really don't want to have a sexual relationship. There could be births that are produced from some of these arranged relationships, where the children remind them of the fact that they are dealing with these kinds of issues. And maybe some of those relationships might be taken out on the children, in the sense of the children reminding them of what has happened in this world. Now, to go back to, say, to go back a little bit towards the Chronicles of Amber, maybe there is, like, for example, two people forge a relationship. Maybe they get married or something out in the wilderness, without anybody around them. And it's possible that breaking some of these oaths of relationships brings about some kind of, like, darkness or something. Like, for example, um, you know, two people go out into the wilderness, and maybe some of the face spirits are around them, and the two promise each other, their lives and souls to each other. And then something magical happens out in the grove. But when they get back to their normal society, they start to forget, or they drop their oaths to each other, because they're expected to do other things by their family, or by their faction, or whatnot. Or maybe even the friends and family don't even know that they made this bond with each other. And then something dark or sinister starts to grow out in the wild. And having something like this happen more often than a little bit might be the reason why people are very sensitive about who their children fall for, and the relationships that they have, and how those relationships are cultivated and such. Because out there in the wild, there's something dark and sinister growing, or spawning something evil, that's out to that's out to either get you, or it could be something as as sinister as like, imagine the person. We've seen the the visualization of someone getting ready to make a decision, and they have like an angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other shoulder, maybe like dark spirits or ghosts or shadows or something like that, um, approach someone and like literally like slither up their back and speak to them in the ear or something, and the shadow is like, talks to them or something and says, yes, this person is um no longer deserves your loyalty. As a matter of fact, they are in your way. Pick up the knife on the table. Yeah, pick up the knife. I know you want to, right? Like maybe there's true power behind that. Or heck, you could even have someone who um, beseeches the old gods, or goes out to specific regions in the world of elder forces or something, and desires to have someone killed, or I want them to fall in love with me, or any kind of like jealousy, petty jealousy of a attractive noble that seems to always things always happen to go their way, and yet this other, I don't know, third string petty noble is something like, yeah, I want them to die. I want them to die horribly, or I wish I looked like them, or I wish I had the ability to speak and talk like them, and to become, as charismatic as them. I want to become. It's basically the crossroads, and maybe the devil in the crossroads, figuratively or literally, grants these individuals, there's power in that desire, and it's like, okay, what are you willing to give up? What are you willing to sacrifice for this? I'm willing to do anything. You're like, anything? All right, when I come to you, and you'll know when I come to you, you owe me a favor, a great favor, right? And then all of a sudden the person leaves the dark woods or whatever location, or an a stone altar or what have you, and when they leave, now all of a sudden, like maybe they become one of those one of your proverbial stat blocks in the game. They move from zero level commoner or noble or something to a rakshasa or something that can change their shape, or a an oni or ogre magi or something of that kind of power, and they flow back into normal society, and all of a sudden they feel like, hey, I'm on top of the world, until some great dark power is like, oh, remember, maybe they're approached by an old man who's like, I have a favor of you, and the person's like all arrogant and stuff. It's like, I don't need to listen to you. And like, yeah, you made a deal with me or one of my kin many years ago, and it's like, oh no, what do you want from me, right? And so it could be that like, the broken oaths or love that has been lost actually has a physical representation in the world, and you could even personify a lot of those things. Even some of the more monstrous creatures might speak to not just the player characters, but even speak around the player characters, like, I don't know, it's the middle of the night, and some devil dogs or something come padding into the town, and the PCs are like, what the hell? And one of the devil dogs heads turns to the PCs and is like, you you adventurers, go back to your homes. This has nothing to do with you. We're here to take the soul of so and so, or whatever, or someone's filled with a jealousy, and we are here to consume our pound of flesh or whatever. And that'd be kind of, I think that'd be kind of cool to add a little bit of a layer of like, it's not just good against evil, but it might be, at the time, a decision might be good, but in hindsight, it might be bad. Especially if people are manipulated by petty envies and jealousies or obsessions or something. PCs might have to protect a very famous bard or something that's surrounded by the equivalent of paparazzi or obsessed fans and whatnot, who want to take their piece of flesh. Or maybe um, there's a commoner or something that has again with the someone, mirror mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of us all, or if that I know that's not the exact quote, but there may be someone who's like, I want to look the best. I want to, you know, be the most powerful. And when the oracle's like, no, there's a commoner who has a zero connection to the noble families, but they themselves are more beautiful than you and whatnot. Or there's some bro dude that's like, I'm the greatest swordsman in the land, and of course the oracle's like, no, there's someone else who's better than you. You're like, who is it? And so that might be the impetus to go after that individual, and then it starts this like snowball. So maybe a setting like this isn't necessarily a setting in which, well, I suppose you could establish noble families and houses and uh, come up with maybe a couple of bullet points in terms of how they relate to people. For example, if you go with the classic seven deadly sins, um, sloth, like laziness, might be a trait attributed to a particular region and the nobles there, and that in a backwards kind of way, not only are they lazy and they want other people to do their work for them, but they also don't want it thrown in their face that other people are working harder than them. So when they see adventurers who are like, backpacking it throughout the region, hey there, Cameron, backpacking it throughout the world, it kind of embarrassing them. When the nobles decide to make a public appearance, maybe the nobles will want to, bring these individuals down a peg. Much like sycophants, I don't know, say when a noble engages in some kind of sporting event, they specifically lose, or the noble goes on a fox hunt, and of course the noble comes back with a fox, and no one else was able to capture any because we're sycophants and we can't embarrass a noble. And so you could have a lot of these dark twists on the classic seven deadly sins or something. Again, the vanity thing of fashion and good looks, and everyone around them thinking that laughing at all of their jokes even though they're not very funny, or entertainers coming into town to try to entertain the nobles because they know once if you don't distract the nobles, they're more likely than not to wave their hand and cause some kind of harm or outrage or destroy part of the population just because they're bored. And so maybe there's this like ever-growing line of entertainers that are trying to entertain the noble, at one point entertain the noble without offending them because they might have their head put on chopping blocks or something, which in and of itself might be a good way if the players are pretty upstanding and noble. You're like, why are they killing people in the streets? And bringing out the old guillotines or something. And it's like the noble is like, your poetry offends me and offends the population. Isn't that right, population? And everyone's like, yeah, you're right. Their poetry is pretty terrible. And then they're killing them in the streets, and the PCs are like, ugh. Also, I could see maybe there are pathways between worlds. As I try to weave my way back into the Amberite theory, that maybe the way to go between worlds has nothing to do with rituals. It has nothing to do with magical powers or class abilities, but it has everything to do with your relationships. Hey guys, hey, have a great one there, Omen. I understand it's evening out there, Philippines. Maybe there's this idea that if you are allied in some way, shape, or form with another family, like for example, maybe there are other worlds, and every player character must pick. Maybe they're born under a particular type of star or celestial event or something like that, and so you have yourself a handful, or maybe a double handful of one or more worlds that the PCs are linked to, but to get to some of the worlds they are not linked to walk between worlds, maybe they must have a relationship with someone who is linked to that world. And if the player characters come from these other worlds as they walk between worlds or something, you know, it's very much. It reminds me of the vampire clans from a Vampire the Masquerade and onward from White Wolf games, where you it's like my character might be from a particular clan, and though the player character may not even agree with the clan, there's always this push and pull, like, if you're not with us, you're against us. So if you're from a clan, all the clan members are like, yeah, you're with us, and then everyone else who's like not from your clan or whatever, or from your bloodline, is like, yeah, you're against us. And of course the player character's like, no. And then of course there's the problem of, well, if you reject your bloodline becomes your enemy, and then the ones you were against might try to, recruit you into their side as an inroads to find a weak link from your group, or maybe even the others are like, we can't even trust you because you decided to rebel against your own bloodline. Let alone, why would we trust you when you're not even from our bloodline, or something like that. And so maybe walking between worlds is more, instead of traveling the world in terms of landscape, maybe there's like a nexus of worlds and the player characters go off much like a planescape type of idea. And to get to these other worlds, there must be, maybe there's power in loyalty, maybe there's power in desire, maybe there's power in obsession, to the nether, the lower planes or something. The fiends down in the lower planes want to kill the PCs, but maybe they smell some kind of petty jealousy or desire or something like that off of one of the PCs, and they can kind of smell it off of their skin or something. They're like, there's something dark in you, Paladin. I smell it. Yeah, everyone sees the bright light, uh, coming from your soul, but I see what it's tethered to. There's someone on a mortal plane that you want for yourself, and they are betrothed to someone else. I see it, and maybe that's something to play with. Like every player character must pick something like a dark thread that like the game master can pull on, and that darkness inside of them is the thing that kind of motivates them or gets them to do one thing or another. And of course, like yesterday, we could talk about mechanical aspects to it, right? Like the game master says, um, pulling on the paladin with who's obsessed with someone, or it is supposed to be of a noble stature, but love someone that they're not supposed to for some social reason, like in our modern day, maybe they're not like supposed to like someone due to economic or gender or racial or religious reasons, but they do anyway, despite themselves, no matter how many times they try to tell themselves they aren't. And so that maybe there is that unexposed or unrequited love, or maybe it's something darker. Maybe they do, it's King Arthur, Guinevere, and Sir Galahad kind of triangle, right? Where there's a little bit of darkness in there, and King Arthur's going off to do his King Arthur-y stuff, and Guinevere is like, I'm kind of liking this other dude, your right hand man kind of thing. Uh, yeah, again, I think you would have to have some kind of quite a bit of buy-in. Is it Lancelot? Sorry about that, Tesla. Yeah, it's Lancelot, not Sir Galahad. It is Lancelot. That's right. Lancelot do bumping nasties with Guinevere, right? And King Arthur finding out about it and throwing away the sword and all that kind of business. Whatever. I don't know the stories off the top of my head. I'm sure there's a wiki attached to all the classic stories, and there are permutations in their depictions in comic books and graphic novels and movies and television. But again, you know, sure, on the outside you could say, oh, yeah, Galahad. That means that Galahad was always at Arthur's side. Yeah. As a matter of fact, there's even supposed to be a movie being made about the Green Knight as a medieval horror story or something. That's in the works. But anyway, from the outside, it looks like, oh, where there's these knights that are keeping the world together and stuff. But behind closed doors, there are these emotional entanglements that are pushing the story. And yeah, and those things pushing the story. I mean, sure, we could all sit down and argue about like what level would they be, and heck, back in AD&D, they tried to stat out like King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table and their abilities and stuff, which is always hilarious when whenever you stat if you stat it, they'll kill it, right? And so that's always pretty hilarious, but something might be said for having these kind of things, and going back a little bit to the mechanical parts of these kind of interactions. Maybe, just maybe, these interactions, for good or bad, are the equivalent of the short rest, long rests, levels, magic items, boons, and other things that are in the world. Like, for example, Wizards of the Coast just released Mythic Odysseys of Theros, about the Greek god. Well, loosely based upon the Greek gods and the boons that they have, and being born as demigods or something. But I could see reframing the character classes and the monsters and all that kind of stuff based around relationships and such. And so, despite the fact that a player character may come back home and find out that I don't know, find out that the person that they were truly in love with, now they find out about this illicit relationship, and maybe that illicit relationship, they're like, I can't believe we promised each other, and one day I don't know, finally become captain of the guard or move up in status or whatever. But the person that they thought they were with has moved on, but maybe the person they were with really hasn't moved on through any desire of their own, but because their family wanted them to bond with this, I don't know, criminal organization. All those things might be part and parcel of the world, and then there might be some kind of numerical or mechanical, strangely like benefit attached to it. Like I was joking around before, where the person comes back home and now all of a sudden they're pissed off because they found out some particular information. So now they've got, like, I don't know, a single use of barbarian rage, even though they're a cleric or like a bard or something like that, or they've come back home and they've talked to their mother about what they should do about the young man or the young woman or what have you that they are truly in love with, and then so when they leave, they have D4 uses of guidance, or they're upon themselves, or maybe they're able to use like one use of bardic inspiration once per long rest or something for the next 9 days or something like that. Yeah, Deadman pops into the Discord. Who was the Green Knight? And there's some kind of strange story with the Green Knight. Yep. This knight came into Arthur's hall and asked any one of the knights to trade blows. Sir Gawain accepted this challenge, and he was allowed to strike first. He cut off the Green Knight's head. The latter calmly picked it up and told Gawain to meet him on New Year's morning for his turn. Yeah. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah. On his way to this meeting, Gawain lodged with the Lord, and each agreed to give the other what he had obtained during each day of Gawain's stay. On the first day, when the Lord was out hunting, Gawain received a kiss from his wife, which was duly passed on. On the second day, he received a brace of kisses, which were also passed on. On the third day, he was given 3 kisses and some green lace, which would magically protect him, but only the 3 kisses were passed on. Cameron says, one of my players has just made a character with a curse that makes everyone he talks to obsessed with him. It was his choice. It could get ugly. Yeah, there's it's possible that maybe certain capabilities, like that the player characters have, turns dark. Like, oh, I'm going to use Charm Person. Great, roll dice. You're not failing the roll, but maybe a crit might make something worse, so that you don't just charm the person, but now the person is obsessed with you, wants to look like you, follow you around, is obsessed with where you go, who you talk to. Um, there it could be pretty nasty when someone thinks that they're doing the right thing for you, but they're doing it for all the crazy wrong reasons or something. There it is, the Green Knight teaser trailer. Thank you there, Tesla. Yeah. Not sure how dark it could go, but I'm imagining. And so yeah, someone could be surrounded by like sycophants or obsessed fans of who they are. The warrior who's obsessed with people around them, much like a gunfighter, and everyone's trying to challenge them, or the bard who has people who follow them at every word. And someone may be speaking just generally. I mean, hell, we have that today, right? Someone famous says something offhanded on Twitter and everybody takes it to heart, like, I can't believe they said this, because they can't possibly be sarcastic or say something out of turn or be a human being. No, we have to take everything they say at face value and exactly the way they said it, using the exact terms of words. Oh, this is going to cause a war, right? And so yeah, it's possible to take like very minor and minute things and people get obsessed with it. Like, could you imagine, I don't know, like some beautiful noble or something, is wearing, dyes their hair blonde or something, or comes out with a red cloak or whatever, and then everyone's like, yeah, Cameron says, like, oh my god, dude, an obsessed fan club is exactly what his character needs. Yeah, exactly. Obsessed fan club, dressing like them, talking like them, maybe spreading rumors that to them sound good, but to the player character it's like, dude, stop talking about that, right? Yeah, like Tessa Rage, he is the Messiah. Exactly. Player character leaves for a couple of weeks, comes back, and all of a sudden there's like a cult written around, drawn around them, and the population is like fed up. They're like, had it up to here, like, please guys stop it. And they're like passing out pamphlets like, I don't know, Thrangar the barbarian, he's the chosen one of the gods, handing out pamphlets to people. We're just like, go away, stop it. Yeah, Thrangar is the best. Aren't you, Thrangar? Thrangar is just like, leave me alone. Like, Thrangar says to leave him alone. Everyone, please leave Thrangar alone. Oh man. Yeah, Tesla's like Paladin rides into town, sees kids play acting his adventures. Yep, puppet shows, little fun stories, or all of a sudden they're like, is there someone chiseling a statue that kind of looks like me? That looks like the sword I carry on my back. What's that about? Right? Oh, heck yeah. Yep, like you said, kids play acting the adventures. Maybe there are player character goes to the classic tavern in the inn, and then when they get ready to walk out, they open up the door to their room in the inn. There's like a gaggle of people that are there to, how do we say, petition for the player character's advances. You know what I mean? Or when they leave, maybe it's more subtle. Maybe it's just like bunches of flowers and trinkets left outside their door as like gifts or something, to take with them or whatever. Yep. Janestown is the 7th episode of Firefly TV series. It was the first aired on Fox. Yep. Returning to a planet where he ran into some serious trouble years ago, Jane discovers that he's become a local folk legend. Mal decides to use this entertaining distraction to complete a job, but some unfinished business may derail his plans. Exactly. And who's to say this doesn't even become far more arcane, right? Like, it goes from the normal population well out into like monstrous things that are where monstrous powers are doing things that are in the player character, or it thinks, or they think they're doing it in the player character's best interest, but the player character hasn't even thought about it, right? Goblin hordes terrorizing a local village in Thrangar's name, right? Like, we are doing this. You must bow down to Thrangar. And Thrangar's like, what the hell is ogres? Like, I don't. control the ogres, and the ogres are like, we've kidnapped these people. These are an offering to you, Thrangar. As the ogres drag the helpless people and some dead bodies back into town and lay them down at the feet of Thrangar the barbarian, and the barbarian's like, what the hell? You guys, then when Thrangar like wants to take it out on one of the ogres or something, ogres are like, yeah, Thrangar's right. We're with you, Thrangar. Human population is screaming and they're like running for it. The barbarian's like, what the hell's going on? What just happened? All of a sudden, the nobles are like sending like gold filigree invitations to Thrangar. Like, you were duly invited to a party in your honor. Please come. And then like the nobles are like have the like dressed in an idiotic version of what the barbarian looks like, with like paper mache battle axes on their back or something. Yeah, dark twists on those kind of things I think would be kind of cool. It'd be kind of awesome. And you could even surround the player characters with like, oh, it's not just general like monsters out there, but the monsters all represent um the darker parts of like loyalty and love or something. Like maybe there is a succubus out there who is manipulating people around the player characters because the succubus in its own way is obsessed with a player character and wants to be with them. And maybe there is a fiend out there that is jealous of one of the wizard. The wizard's got great arcane power, but there's a fiend out there that maybe the fiend used to be the most powerful arcane caster or something, or there's a lich out there. There's a wizard who's rising up in power, who's better than me. It can't be, And maybe the lich sends agents or something after the wizard. Like, I hear you are a great, a great arcanist or something like that. I would like to meet with you. Understand that I am the greatest, caster of all, and I have a library with the greatest books. I need you to understand it. I need you to tell everybody. I need you to bow down to me. I need you to let everyone know that I am the greatest mind in all of the land. While you're out there flaunting your intelligence and your knowledge of the vast extraplanar world, and the PC's like, what the hell is this about? I don't know this guy. But that would be kind of cool to always wrap, like, little by little, the player characters are getting more and more entangled in these things that although the player characters aren't knowingly doing a thing, much like how today we have famous people in the media, and like Cameron and Tesla put in the chat about kids play acting, play acting their adventures, or puppet shows, or banners being drawn, or holidays being made, or parties, or maybe even the way people dress or speak to each other. People walk up and down the street and they're like, great Thrangar to you. Oh, Thrangar to yourself as well. Like, that's my name. What are they saying? What does that mean? What does that even mean? Is that a greeting or something? Is that like, are they wishing each other a great death in battle? Or are they saying like, hey, great Thrangar to you. I'm going to go get like myself some banana pancakes or something. Like, what in the world? So it could be some very minor things that are attached to player characters that end up getting blown well out of proportion. Having admirers, being surrounded by sycophants, having people that are jealous of them for no good reason, but they still are, people that are envious of them, others who want to take advantage of their newfound popularity, even others who are, for no other reason than someone like, the greatest, gunfighter or something, they want to take the PCs down a couple of pegs because they feel like they're being challenged with it. So I'm liking this. I'm liking this a lot. And sure, there could be a big bad evil guy in the background, an old hag who's handing out different kinds of concoctions to the population, because the population is just, maybe there's some people who are literally dying or mutating themselves because they want to be just as strong and powerful as Thrangar. Maybe uh, the people the population are trying to impress in their relationships are like, well, I'd be with you, but you're no Thrangar. And they're like, I'm going to become like Thrangar, and they're quaffing down hag's milk or something, turning into like minotaurs and cyclopses and ogres and trolls or something out there in the wild to try to get as big and powerful as this Thrangar person who's just been like, the hell is going on? All I did is like kill a dragon a couple of sessions ago. Like, what's so I could see that happening. Now, taking this in another twist, it might be that player character advancement, going with the classic character classes, feats, special abilities, magic items, and all that kind of stuff, might be tied in with these really strange and dark and toxic relationships. Meaning, like again, a certain fighting style might be related to a certain noble family, but you owe them something. And that something might not be gold or even favors. Well, it might not be gold, but it might be favors of a certain type. Maybe there is a like I will. The wizard needs some kind of like I want to go to the library and find out more spells, and one of the sages in the library is like, if you could do me a favor, I have a little note, and I'd like you to take it to the young man that lives down the street or something, and I'm too afraid to speak, but could you speak to this person on my behalf? And they're like, I guess I could do that for you. I'm willing to unlock the you know unlock the great arcane knowledge for you, but if you just do this one thing for me, like, all right, I guess I'll go down the street. And then of course, things happen where the young man down the street falls for the sorceress or something like that, unbeknownst, and by accident or whatever. And now when they come back to the sage is like, I'm not unlocking anything for you. Like, well, why? Like, I told you to deliver a note. I didn't tell you to make them fall in love with you or whatever. Like, what are you talking about? I didn't do that. And all of a sudden things start to change and shift and stuff. I could even see like the gods having these like petty, intricate relationships. I'm looking at you, Greek gods, and the mortal population is just rolling their eyes like, oh my god, like really? Is this really a thing that's going to happen in our world, leaving things to us or something? Like, the goddess of beauty and charms and I don't know, the god of petty jealousies or something wants their followers to do a thing, and the PCs are like, why? Why would I even want to do that? But the gods, they've given a choice. I'm like, listen, I'm enchanting you with these powers. Maybe you need to do this thing for me. I think it'd be kind of cool. You could do it. You can do something with espionage by having people, the player characters, instead of killing and murdering, maybe they are leaving notes or evidence of, secret admirers, or stealing a particular personal item and leaving it in someone else's home, or putting it on someone else's body to be accused of having an illicit relationship that they didn't normally have, or even think they didn't even have any relationship with each other in the first place. But rumors spread, and now all of a sudden it's like, the King's Guard stops them. King's Guard stops them, and they stops them on the street, and they're like, you were in the princess's room, personal chambers. I'm like, no, I wasn't. And then they get frisked, and all of a sudden they hold up to her necklace or her, undergarments or something out of his backpack or whatever. Like, see, holding around to the population, see what he's done? He deserves to die. The population's like, yeah, I think he should die. Yeah, he shouldn't have gone in the princess's chambers. Like, I don't have anything to do with this. What the hell's going on? Yeah, that means that Wild Bill Hickok was most famed over Gunslinger. 19 1837 to 1876. What's the show? Deadwood. Deadwood had was a short-lived but pretty good show about um, gold rush and gunslingers and things like that. I like that show. Hell, even an old, somewhat bottle movie known, The Quick and the Dead, was basically about petty jealousies. Right, the main character the main character jealous over the younger gunslinger who was always more handsome and a better gunslinger who decided to get out of the gunslinging um, criminal life and give up gunslinging. And the whole movie, even though it was about these famous gunslingers, was really about petty jealousies. Really, um, yeah. Deadman says he earned a great deal of notoriety in his own time, much of it bolstered by the many outlandish and often fabricated tales. Some contemporaneous reports of his exploits are known to be fictitious, but they remain the basis of much of his fame and reputation, along with his own stories, which would be kind of cool for the player characters to have these stories written about them, or even the player characters have tried um, to out Munchausen each other, um, to outlandish each other in these tall tales, until people that are involved in the tall tales, it becomes real or something. I don't know. That might be taken a little too far. Like, hey, I made up a story about my background. All of a sudden, it becomes real. But I suppose if you want to go more like Fey origin, because Fey creatures have a lot to deal with, like petty and base emotions, whether it is falling in love or being obsessed or petty jealousies or vanity or something like that. They are, for me, I think they also tend to fall into that category pretty easily. So that may be another reason to if the player characters or your players are willing to embrace this kind of idea, I think I think it would be cool. Now, mind you, you might want to worry about some of the darker aspects, especially like a player character that's like, I'm going to make that person love me no matter what. Might be a little problematic at the table in our day and age, but I suppose you could play with it if people are mature enough, especially if everyone realizes that this is supposed to be something that's either this isn't something that we are claiming is a good thing. We're saying that this is a bad thing, and that the character may learn from their mistakes. Now, as we start to wind down, for those of you, if you've stuck with the show this long, you'll know that the show is simulcast over on Twitch, YouTube, and our Discord server. Normally, I was actually broadcasting with the video image over in Discord, but we've had some strange audio issues due to that, so only the audio is getting punched out to our Discord. But whatever, it is simulcast on 3 platforms thereof. Now, I will end this by talking about the idea of growth, character growth, and there are basically 2 types of character, very general character arc stories. One is fluid and the other one is static. Static characters, I'll say Captain America fits into a static character where the world moves around them, but the character remains static in their thoughts and actions and beliefs, right? They have a set of capabilities, they have like a moral code, or they have an oath, or they have a standard that they live by, and everyone else around them starts to shift and change. Your classic maverick cop falls into that category. I'm the honest cop. I am I am the upholder of law, or I am always loyal to my friends, or whatnot. And then things start to turn gray and shift around the character, and the character doesn't move. This could be a thing, especially if the character stays the same, but the things around them start shifting around. People start changing their loyalties. There are people who are attracted to the character or jealous, or they have these weird petty envies, or they're seeking certain types of loyalty, or they're beseeching the player character for certain favors that are pushing and pulling against the player character's moral code. And so in this idea, it could be, for example, maybe the static character has an ally who has an unhealthy obsession with someone, and the player at once wants to be loyal to their friend, but at the same time wants to correct their friend's behavior. But part of their moral code is to give their friend their freedom. So they might have to work against their friend, their loyal confidant, and lie to them to fix the situation because they think their obsession might be unhealthy. And so that might be the challenge. Now, the other way around this is the world is static, but the player changes. The character starts to change. And that's where you have character growth. So a character could go from being obsessed with someone who's very attractive or beautiful to then changing their mind because they found out this person is very arrogant and has been using their attractive wiles to get what they want. And so now that they don't like this person, but everyone assumes that they've always liked this person, so wants to put them together. And so now they've changed their minds. So then the character starts to ebb and flow and maybe wants to find another relationship. But then the one they wanted to have a relationship in the first place with now realizes like, oh, I love the attention that the character was giving to me, and I want that attraction back again. And so that could be its own problem. You see this a lot in any and all of the soap operas, right? Where there's this constant turning of the wheel, this cycle of petty jealousies, and I like them, no, they like me, no, I don't want your attention. Great, okay, I'm leaving. Well, now I do want your attention. Or maybe they now see something in the player character they didn't see before that they truly admire, part of that loyalty that they had, and maybe this person starts to compromise their own desires or intentions, or start to break away from their own moral code, and the person that starts to like them is like, no, I liked you the old way, and your player character's like, I don't like myself the old way, I like myself the new way. Yeah. Deadman puts in Lethal Weapon. Yeah, American buddy cop. Yeah, classic buddy cop, right? And action comedy. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I guess it's a comedy. Sitting on the toilet with an explosive underneath it. Okay. It's a comedy. But yeah, the a classic buddy cop thing, right? Where you have, it's the classic. I'm too old for this shit, right? One wants to retire. The other one's the maverick. And heck, there's even a maverick cop archetype in the role-playing game Feng Shui, and I'm sure there's plenty others that do the same thing, right? And so the character growth part of like love and desire and obsession might be that, hey everybody, my character is going to have this unhealthy relationship, and it could very well be one-sided, but that's going to be part of my arc, but it's going to surely shift over into another arc of what my character is going to be, and doing that above board. Yep. Like Deadman says, the Maverick archetype is a trope itself. Of course it is. As a matter of fact, there is. I know you guys have a lot of. I put into the Discord the ideas for DBJ, but I'm going to end this with. I heard this on a podcast. I believe the podcast was a Joe Rogan podcast of all things. The idea of, we understand what the Western is, where the Western is a lawless world, a world of chaos, and a character shows up who is themselves part of chaos. And the person went to describe the other three types of stories, not just the Western. So the Western is lawlessness from a lawless character. And then he says, well, the Eastern is a world of law with a character who wants to support the law, support the culture. Much like the classic Western, we think of as Western gun shooters, the Wild West, going through, moving across the states and whatnot. The Eastern we think of as like a classic stereotype of the samurai tale, where the culture, it's not taking down the culture, but the culture itself is ironclad, and the people involved in it are not there to disrupt the culture, but they are there to support the culture, the classic samurai, right? And their loyalty. And then goes on to talk about the northern and the southern stories, where there is a, and I don't remember which one was which, but like either northern is a lawless land where someone is there to instill law, and the southern is a lawful land where the characters are there to create chaos and take down the law. Yeah, Judge Dredd, I am the law. Where the Judge Dredd would be a northern story, where there is lawlessness and the characters are there to bring law. Your classic police procedural is that way. Someone is out there disrupting the creating chaos. They are bucking the system. They are the lawlessness. And then the PCs represent law and order. They represent organization. They represent normalcy. And so they come in to instill normalcy. So Judge Dredd is the epitome of that. And then you have the opposite, where you have a southern where there's nothing but extreme law, and the characters are there to take down the system. Very much Star Wars is a perfect example of that, where it might be a southern. Now, mind you, I'm probably mixing this up. Maybe Star Wars is a northern, the other one's a southern. But anyway, eastern, western, northern, southern. I was like, oh, that's a kind of a cool way to think about it, right? Different ways of looking at law and chaos. But I know that has nothing to do with this. Well, it kind of squirreled a little bit there, but it may not have much to do with what we talk about today. But in a little way, you could run a story in which jealousy and obsession and lust and desire and the unhealthiness of it is part of the world, and the PCs are there to create order out of it. Like, hey, we shouldn't be acting this way. Or maybe the PCs themselves are the ones who are embracing this, and the rest of society is telling them that they shouldn't be doing this, and so on and so forth. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. Tomorrow is Third Pillar Thursday. I don't know what the hell I'm gonna talk about then, but that's kind of the whole point of the show, right? Is to find something and to deep dive into it, and figure out a way for it to expand our own horizons, even just a little bit. So anyway, guys, as usual, you guys know that I broadcast this show very early in the morning. I've got to head off to work, but I want you guys to have a great day. Everyone have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, or whenever you catch these broadcasts. Everyone have a great one. Thank you very much for being part of RPG with DBJ. Have a great day. Bye. Thank you very much.